Dunce TV exclusive, the tragic reality of domestic violence and the moral decay in Jamaican society. On July 24th, our family and community were forever changed. Shennekia Richards, a young mother, daughter, and sister-in-law, became another victim of the growing epidemic of domestic violence in Jamaica. Her life was cruelly stolen by the father of her child in a senseless act over a trivial dispute and argument that could have been resolved with words but instead escalated into a deadly encounter. Shennekia's death is not just a personal tragedy, it is a sobering reflection of a broader, disturbing trend that has gripped our society. The comfort in violence, the devaluation of life in Jamaica. Once upon a time, Jamaica was a nation where disputes, even in the most heated moments, were resolved with dialogue, understanding, or at worst, physical fights that rarely ended in death. Today, we see a startling shift, a trend where men, especially of this younger generation, are more comfortable taking the lives of women and children over conflicts that would have been deemed inconsequential not long ago. The murder of women, who should be the nurturers and cornerstones of our society, has become shockingly normalized. This is a clear indication of a deep moral and psychological fracture within our society. The breakdown of morality, a Gen Z crisis. The rise in domestic violence, especially violence against women, is deeply rooted in the broader decay of morality. Gone are the days when respect for the elderly and reverence for women were bedrocks of Jamaican culture. Gen Z, bombarded by toxic ideologies through social media and popular music, seems to have lost the respect and values passed down by previous generations. Elders are no longer seen as figures of wisdom but as burdens or obstacles. Women are no longer celebrated as pillars of strength but are reduced to derogatory labels like bitch and whore in the music and media that dominate their lives. Music and culture, agents of destruction. We cannot ignore the influence of music and entertainment in shaping the attitudes of this generation. Where our grandparents and parents listened to songs of upliftment, unity, and respect, today's youth are fed a steady diet of lyrics glorifying violence, materialism, and the objectification of women. Women, once seen as the foundation of the Jamaican family, are now treated as objects of sexual gratification. The rise of domestic abuse is directly tied to this devaluation, where men, influenced by destructive media, feel entitled to control and harm the women in their lives. The strong Jamaican woman, the silent guardian. Jamaican women have long been the silent guardians of our society. They have taken on the dual role of mother and father in countless households, working tirelessly to raise their children with love, discipline, and hope. Many women in Jamaica are the backbone of their families, making unimaginable sacrifices to ensure their children succeed. Without them, our society would have crumbled long ago. Yet today, we see a disturbing shift. The once indomitable spirit of the Jamaican woman is being diluted. Many young women in this generation have bought into the lie that being a bad bitch is a badge of honor, forsaking their dignity, values, and the legacy of strength left behind by their foremothers for fleeting fame and social media validation. Gen Z women, tricked by the illusion of fame. This moral decay is particularly tragic among Gen Z women, who, rather than striving for the empowerment their mothers and grandmothers fought for, are now being tricked by the allure of materialism and instant gratification. They fall prey to men who promise quick fame, riches, and notoriety, men who often engage in scamming, violence, and other illegal activities. These young women, in turn, perpetuate the cycle of destruction by aligning themselves with men who devalue hard work, respect, and long-term commitment. The traditional pillars of success, education, craftsmanship, and discipline have been cast aside, and in their place is a misguided obsession with fast money and superficial glory. Men in crisis, emotional instability and violence. The moral crisis isn't just limited to women, Jamaican men, too, are in turmoil. Many young men today are emotionally unequipped to handle conflict, resorting to violence at the slightest provocation. Whether due to the pressures of economic instability or the pervasive influence of a culture that glorifies power through violence, these men are unable to navigate even the most basic disagreements without lashing out. In the case of Shennekia, her partner chose a knife over a conversation, a tragic reflection of the larger societal failure to equip men with the tools to handle conflict peacefully. The government's failure, a crisis of priorities. While Jamaica faces this epidemic of violence, the government seems to be more focused on balancing books for the IMF and World Bank than addressing the root causes of our moral decay. Public spending on education, healthcare, and social services is slashed, leaving the most vulnerable, our women, children, and elders, without the support systems they desperately need. Meanwhile, corruption in both the public and private sectors goes unchecked. The white-collar criminals who rob our nation's financial institutions face no consequences, while the blue-collar workers are left to fend for themselves. In a society where justice is elusive, is it any wonder that crime spirals out of control? A nation at a crossroads, is this by design? As we look at the disintegration of our once proud Jamaican society, we must ask ourselves, is this moral decay by design? Are we merely puppets in a larger scheme, being manipulated by forces we cannot see? Or have we, as a society, simply lost our way, selling out the values that once defined us in exchange for fleeting pleasures and material gains? One thing is clear: if we continue down this path, we will lose everything that once made us proud to be Jamaican. Conclusion: Shennekia's legacy and our call to action. In memory of Shennekia Richards, we must rise up and confront the issues of domestic violence and moral decay in our society. Her tragic death should not be in vain. It is a stark reminder that we must act now to protect the women, children, and future generations of Jamaica. This is not just a fight for justice, it is a fight for the soul of our nation. We must restore respect, dignity, and morality to our culture before it is too late. Let us honor Shennekia by working together to end the cycle of violence and ensure that no other family has to endure the pain of such a senseless loss.